Hello everyone, and welcome to Gameshow Grand Prix, the first episode of it on my channel, Penny Commentary. Goodness, that was difficult to say. Welcome
Get the name of your own channel correct.
Sure, it was my own name as well, not
We're
necessarily
back,
the name of my
folks!
channel. And as you can hear, I'm joined by my two usual partners in crime, the fantastic Gear 3 Gaming, or Jack MacKenzie, and Real C. Whitfield, who is of course Chris. Hi guys!
Hello.
Hi, and we're back!
I feel so good to actually have the gang back together after a while. It's been ages.
Totally, I missed you
I
guys
feel
on
like
the podcast.
it feels like a reunion tour, like an old '80s rock band reunion tour.
Well, I
It
hope
really
to
does.
Yeah, I hope to do more of this at some point, because, you know, it's great to have, as you say, the band back together, the three musketeers, or as such. But anyway, today we have a quiz designed by me. It's going to be 15 questions about F1 records, or motorsport records, and effectively, Jack and Chris are both going to pick two drivers, and those drivers have been given points depending on how high up the list they are. So say, for example, I said a record and Jack picked two drivers who happened to be first and second on the list. He would score 25 and 18 points as per the FIA scoring system. Anyway, with those rules clarified, let's get into the first question, which is a quite simple one, who most people know the top few of, which is the youngest Formula 1 driver. So let's start with Jack, since he is the youngest. Two drivers to do with this list. Oh, and by the way, you guys have better not have Wikipedia open or the internet full stop.
Right, I'm saying Max Verstappen and Lando Norris.
Okay, and Chris's too?
Lance Stroll
Sure.
and Peter Collins.
Peter Collins, interesting one. So, starting with Jack, he picked Max Verstappen, who is of course the youngest of all time, starting at only 17 years of age, younger than me, and also Lando Norris, who was the third youngest in history. So overall, that is 40 points to Jack. So, Chris, you picked Lance Stroll and Peter Collins. Now, Peter Collins actually isn't on that list, although I think he was one of the youngest of his generations. And Lance Stroll is P2, so that is 18 points to Chris.
Excellent.
A fun fact about that, Chris Amon and Daniel Kvyat, who are both joint ninth on the list, are actually joint ninth, as I've written, as they were both exactly the same age to the day when they started their first Grand Prix.
To the day. That's interesting, yeah. So I'm gonna guess that Chris is gonna go second for the second round. Oh, sorry, he's gonna go first for the second round.
Indeed he is. So, most Formula 1 races without a win.
Ooh.
And this doesn't necessarily mean, like, consecutive races without a win. So, for example, if a driver did, 81 races without a win and then won one, that would eliminate them. So this is a list of drivers who never won a Grand Prix.
I'm gonna go with Chris Amon
Okay.
and Andrea De Cesaris.
So, I'm going to answer that first, actually. You probably should have done that from the start. Chris Amon, amazingly, is not on the list, despite the fact I think he probably did hold the record at the time, but he's been beaten by quite a few drivers since then, mainly because there are more races these days. But Andrea De Cesaris, you are absolutely right, he is P1, so that's 25 points to Chris. Jack, who are your two?
I'm gonna go with Nico Hulkenberg and Martin Brundle.
They are both on the list. Nico Hulkenberg is P3, so that's 15 points, whereas Martin Brundle, P6, so that is 8. And overall, that gives you 23 points. Chris beat Jack by 2 points on that round. Fun fact of that question is that out of those, only Nico Hulkenberg and Adrian Sutil, who would have been 10th on the list, failed to score a podium, and they both achieved their best results by finishing 4th in a Force India.
Oh, interesting. Now, Chris wanted to know who was second place.
That would have been Nick Heidfeld.
Ah, right.
Heidfeld.
So, going into the third round, what are the point standings looking like?
We have Jack in the lead on 63 and Chris lagging behind on 43. So that's 20 points in it, but still, that's less than a win's worth, so Chris very much still in the game. So, question 3, and it's Chris's turn to go first, again, since he is behind. So, question 3 is the most Formula 1 hat-tricks of pole, win, and fastest lap in the same Grand Prix.
Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton.
Great guesses.
Those were my two.
Those are great guesses because those are P1 and P2. They are the max points you could have got. Schumacher has 22, and that is the record. Right, Jack.
I am going to guess Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost.
Good picks again. They are both on the list, unsurprisingly. Prost is P5, so that gives you 10 points. And Ayrton Senna is joint 7th with Alberto Ascari.
Oh, I would have thought that Senna would have been higher.
Me too. I certainly did not expect Alberto Ascari to have as many as Senna, but he does. So that is...
Was Fangio... Was Juan Fangio the third one?
Fangio was 4th, actually. Jim Clark actually scored more hat-tricks than Juan Manuel Fangio, despite having a much shorter career.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because he won 25 I believe 25 races in his career.
I believe so. Yeah, you might be right with that one. Well done, Chris. Good little extra fun fact. Although the fun fact I've actually put down for this one is that the very first Grand Prix was a hat trick for Giuseppe Farina back in 1950, despite the fact he only ever got one hat trick, with that being his only one. And the most recent Grand Prix to this date was also a hat trick for Lewis Hamilton. So a bookend of hat tricks, I suppose.
Was that the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last year?
Indeed, Abu Dhabi 2019, as sadly the Australian Grand Prix has been cancelled.
Yes, I know, and I was meant to be going, and I'm very sad.
I'll be lucky if Canada's gonna stay.
Canada may end up being the first round at this rate, to be honest. Goodness me.
Imagine that.
That would actually... Well, hopefully...
Well, it used to be the finale, I believe, didn't it?
I'm not sure it ever hosted the finale.
I think that would be interesting, because at times Canada can produce some really exciting races, but over the past couple of years the races haven't been great. So imagine if we got either a really good opening or a really bad opening to the season. I think it wouldn't really be any in between. It'd either be really exciting or really poor.
Okay, so after round 3, we have Chris actually taking the lead there on 86 points, ahead of Jack on 81.
Wait, what? Oh my goodness, okay. Wow,
Sorry,
he's
Jack.
clawed back a lot of points.
Well, you got P1 and P2, so that shows you just how important these points are. We're using, of course, the FIA point scoring system, so wins are valuable, my dude. Right, so Jack starts in this one. We have oldest drivers to set a fastest lap in a Formula 1 Grand Prix. So
I'm gonna say Rubens Barrichello and Raikkonen.
Good guesses. I probably would have gone for the same thing, but amazingly, neither of them are in the top 10.
No!
Can you believe it?
What?
Yeah, honestly, I would have thought the same thing. I would have thought that Raikkonen would have at least been in the top 10, but he isn't. Anyway, on to Chris.
I'm gonna say Juan Manuel Fangio and Phil Hill.
Good guesses again. Fangio is the top. He is P1, meaning you get 25 points for him. He was actually 46 when he set his last fastest lap. However, Phil Hill, sadly, is actually not in the list, so that proved to be a very, very tough one. Second place on the list would have been Piero Taruffi, who not many people remember. Third would have been Nino Farina, or Giuseppe Farina, and then the rest of the top 5 would have been Jack Brabham and Luigi Villaresi. So there you go.
So if
I
Chris
was
had
also
gotten
thinking
both
Nigel
on the
Mansell.
list- If Chris had gotten both on the list, that would have been quite costly for me. So that's good that he only got
It was
one,
costly
but
for you
it's
nonetheless,
still...
I'm afraid, because
Yeah, I know.
Chris is actually now on 111 points, whereas you are still on 81. So that's 30 points in it, heading on to the next round. The fun fact for that one, Nico Rosberg actually set fastest lap at his very first Grand Prix, despite that year's Williams being uncompetitive. He wasn't particularly old, but it was to do with fastest lap, so there you go. Okay, question 5. Most wins by drivers who have never been world champion. So, Jack goes first.
Bruce McLaren and Rubens Barrichello.
McLaren and Barrichello. Well, Barrichello is on the list. He is P4. So he's actually joint P4 with someone, although I can't say who yet. And who was the other one? Bruce McLaren? He's actually not on the list, I'm afraid. So there you go.
Oh, my game's falling apart.
You get 12 points for Rubens Barrichello. Right, Chris, who are your 2 picks?
Sterling Moss and Riccardo Patrese?
Well done on your Sterling Moss. You're P1 again. Sterling Moss, P1, 16 victories with no World Championships. Riccardo Patrese, Jack will be glad to hear, is not on the list. So that is 25 points to you, Chris, with only 12 points going to Jack on that round.
Darn.
Incidentally, David Coulthard would have been second, with Carlos Reutemann third. And the fun fact is that the most recent person to hold this record temporarily was Nico Rosberg, who had the record for 7 months before winning the championship, and thus erasing himself from this particular record.
Okay. So how many rounds have we got left?
So 10 to go. We've done 5.
Oh, okay. I'm still in the game then. That's fine.
Okay, 99 points to Jack.
Actually.
Jack, it's James.
136 to Chris.
I had to.
Well
That actually
done.
works because I have a friend called James. Jeez.
You know I had to do that.
I had to
Well
do
done,
that, yeah.
Chris. With Jack languishing behind, 37 points behind Chris, sorry Jack, we move on to the second of our 3 segments, which is about Formula 1 teams. So first of all, total wins. Jack goes first.
Ferrari and Mercedes.
Good picks. Ferrari is P1 on 238 Formula 1 wins, so that's 25 points for you. Mercedes only 4th, although very close to overtaking P2 and P3. So that is 37 points as a whole. On to Chris now.
McLaren and Williams.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
Those are actually P2 and P3, so great scores.
I knew it was going to be two and 3.
Great scores for both of you, and that is 33 for Chris, meaning Jack did actually score more on that round. Incidentally, McLaren, Williams and Mercedes are very close on points, and actually Mercedes could technically jump up to 2nd this season. Also technically Williams could too, but let's face it, that's not going to happen. Fun fact, the top winning team that has never won either championship is Ligier with 9 wins, but no drivers or constructors championships. So, with 33 points in it, we move on to question 2 of segment 2, which is most races without a podium for a F1 constructor. So, Jack, you go first.
Without a podium, so are we still... So are we saying to this day they still have not scored a podium?
Indeed, these teams have never scored a podium.
Okay. Might need to do some thinking on this one.
Fair enough, so long as that thinking isn't called Wikipedia.
I wouldn't use Wikipedia. Huh. Just to be clear, it doesn't... Are we saying that it doesn't count if the team have... Sorry, I'm going to try to work out how to word this. It doesn't... Are we still attributing those races without a win to a team that changed names? Or changed, like, sort of...
I knew that would... I knew that would come up. I went with what Wikipedia said. Luckily, looking at this, there don't appear to be duplicates of any team, and by duplicates I mean, you know, a team that changed its name. So...
Like, okay, right.
Yeah,
okay. I'm gonna say... And if I stuff this up, it will really highlight how terrible my knowledge actually is. I'm going to say Minardi and okay. I'm just trying to think of really crap teams right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, crap teams that lasted years and years and years.
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few to pick from.
The trouble with this question, of course, is that you can think of really rubbish teams that lasted for decades, but a lot of them had, like, standout podiums or whatever. You know, there were teams...
No, that's the problem,
you know, there are teams that drove for years and then suddenly scored a podium or whatever.
But, that's the difficult thing.
Yeah.
And then there's also teams that were good and then became rubbish.
Of course there are. Or teams
As
that
is
were
the
rubbish.
natural cycle of things.
Or teams that were pretty rubbish and then became good, like Red Bull.
Dude, that's the problem. Screw it, Lola.
Good choices. Lola not on the list, however Minardi is actually the top choice. So Minardi, with 340 races and 0 podiums, gives you 25 points. So, Chris, you this is the kind of question that you excel in. Can you beat Jack?
Yeah, he knows all the rubbish teams, yeah.
Most without a podium or most without a win?
Most without a podium.
Ooh.
I thought I heard typing there. I thought somebody was cheating. I was about to clamp down.
That's me looking up Lola to see if they ever scored a podium. They did, actually. 1962, they scored 2 podiums with John Surtees, and 1990, they scored 1 with Suzuki.
Was that the only 2 podiums, I'm going to guess?
The only 3, yeah.
Only 3, yeah, okay.
2 in 62, 1 in 1990.
Ooh, this is tough. I'm going to say Jaguar.
Okay.
And Leighton House.
Now, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that both of those scored podiums because neither of them are on the list. Jaguar, indeed, they scored a podium in 2001 with Eddie Irvine and another in 2002, also with Eddie Irvine. And Leighton House... Typey. Leighton House scored a podium, a famous one with Ivan Capelli at the 1990 French Grand Prix. Unlucky, Chris. You're always going on about that race.
Wait. Are we, just to clarify, Minardi never scored a podium ever?
They never, ever scored a podium until they became Toro Rosso, but that doesn't count. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, right.
Fun fact, the gap from Minardi in first place and Osella in second is a massive tally of 208 extra races. Ouch.
Ow.
Oh, Sella!
Yeah, Acela
I was also thinking Arrows, but they had
I
scored
was thinking
several
Arrows as
podiums.
well.
Yeah,
but
Arrows scored
yeah.
podiums. Ocello was second, Ensign was third, ATS fourth, and Has are currently fifth because Has have not yet scored a podium. So there you go. So,
Oh.
let me just go and write those scores down. That is 25 to Jack and nothing to anyone else. So Jack catches up by a lot on that one. Only 8 points in it now. Chris on 169, Jack on 161. We move on now to part 2, question 3, which is total front row lockouts for teams.
I'm still doing this.
Yep, Jack is still going first. Because you're still
Ferrari
behind.
and McLaren.
Good choices. Those are first and third. 65 front row lockouts for Ferrari, giving you 25 points, and McLaren a third, giving you 15. Right, Chris.
Williams and Brabham?
Williams are joint third with McLaren, giving you 15 points, just as Jack scored with McLaren. And Brabham is joint ninth with Alfa Romeo, giving you 2 points. So overall, that would be 40 points to Jack in that round, and only 17 to Chris. So Jack takes the lead.
Yes.
Ooh. On the previous question, by the way, I was also going to guess Tolman.
Let me check what that would have given you.
For non-podium.
Tolman aren't on that list, since I believe they scored a podium with... Oh, Ayrton
It's a
Senna,
tricky-
Monaco 84.
Ah, right.
It's a tricky one because you have to think of shit teams that stayed around for a really long time.
Wow.
Because normally the rubbish teams, they don't stick around for too long. But then you got to think of teams that do stick around. Of course,
yeah. I tell you what though, Senna actually scored 3 podiums in 84. Didn't think it was that good.
Actually, at Monaco, people have predicted, they've done the maths and said if the race had continued to its full distance, Senna would most likely have caught and passed Prost and won the race.
Yeah, probably.
And retired because his rear suspension...
Incidentally, Jack, your lead is now 15 points, so you have got ahead by a third place's worth. So we move on now to question 4, which is most races by teams who never scored a point at all. Most races by teams who never scored a point at all. In terms of duplicate teams, again, I'm going with what Wikipedia said. So so for example, I know both of these teams have scored points, but Force India and Racing Point would count as 2 different entries. Racing Point Force India would also technically count as a separate entry as well, although all of those teams did score points, you don't have to worry about that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And this time it will be Chris who starts.
Without a point.
It's a tough one, it really is.
Zach Speed?
Zach Speed did score points. Let me just search up how many they scored. Your second choice, sorry?
Sukar Fittipaldi.
Again, good choices, but I think that both of those teams scored points. Zach Speed scored 2 points with 5th place at the 1987 San Marino Grand Prix with Martin Brundle. The Fittipaldi team actually scored 3 podiums. Sorry, Chris.
Did they?
They did indeed.
All with Emerson, I guess.
1 in 78 with Emerson, 1 in 80 with Emerson, and another 1 in 80 with Keke Rosberg. So there you go.
Okay, so we're saying teams that have gone the most races without scoring a point.
Indeed. So Chris on that sadly scored 0 points, as both of his teams did score points. And let's see if Jack can do better.
Right, I'm gonna say Life and I'm going to take a gamble. I'm going to take a gamble on this one. I'm going to say Penske.
I like the little snort from Chris as Jack said light there. Sadly, Life did not race, or did not enter enough races to be on this list. So unfortunately, they are not. Well, I mean, they're not in the top 10, so that's 0 points for them. And Penske actually won a race. Can either of you tell me when that was?
With John Watson.
Indeed, the 76 something or other Grand Prix. I should search that up quickly.
0 points on the board for both of us.
0
Long
points
Beach, I
for
think,
both
wasn't
of
it?
you. I have a feeling it was Austria. I'm gonna research it. IndyCar results, Formula 1 results. It was Austria. Points to me.
Excellent.
So, what else is on the list?
Who were the top 3?
Oh yeah, okay. Top 3 for that one would have been HRT and Caterham, who were actually tied, 56 races each and 0 points. And third place was the previous iteration of Caterham, which was the Lotus team, as it was from 2010 to 2011, and that was actually joint third with Virgin. So very modern teams holding the top 4 spaces, because of course there are just more races now. Incidentally, the top one of the older teams would have been Ram. But anyway, fun fact.
Ram.
Yeah, Ram. Also, just to make Chris drool, sorry, the others in the top 10 were Spirit, 40, Pacific, Simtech, and Fund Metal. So, fun fact, the top 4 of those teams never scored a point, despite having the luxury of 10 point-scoring places available, unlike the other teams. And a lot of the other teams actually would have scored points had they been racing in the modern day and age.
And they were that rubbish then?
They were indeed that rubbish.
Right. Okay.
And also, wasn't... Yeah, because 40 would have scored 3 points at Australia.
I think they may have done, yeah. Well, actually...
Because they finished 7th.
7th place nowadays is worth 6 points, so they would have actually scored more.
Plus, I think they finished 9th in their first start.
Let me search that up quickly, because I'm interested. This probably won't go in the actual end result, but I'm interested. 40 Corsa... Their first race was a 10th place, so they would have scored a point there. They would have scored 2 points at the Italian Grand Prix in 95. They would have scored 6 at the Australian Grand Prix, 1 at the 96 Argentinian Grand Prix, 1 at the 96 San Marino Grand Prix. So they were actually a much better than their scoreboards suggest. But also, back in those days, of course, there were more like retirements and things. Interestingly, another fact, this isn't one that I've written down as an official fun fact, but something I discovered the other day about Ford, is that they were the last team to use a manual gearbox.
Yep. I think actually it was 96 they used that.
Yeah, very, very outdated by that point. Very outdated. Okay. Question 5, and since neither of you score points, that means that Jack is still ahead by 15 points. We have...
Collective effort was really good in the last round.
Sorry?
The collective effort was really good in the last round.
It was. I could hear the cogs turning in your heads, but sadly they didn't turn enough, or in the right directions. But anyway, question 5, highest percentage wins for a team. So that means that if you take the percentage of the number of wins that they started compared to the number of number of races that they entered, basically which team won the most. Not quite the same.
I'm gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna say Ferrari and Mercedes.
Good choices. They're both in the top 5. You have Mercedes P1, of course. They're currently on 48.6%, with Ferrari in 4th place. So overall, that is 37 points. Jack's got a tough one on his hands here.
We're saying Mercedes was number 1 and McLaren was number. Sorry, not McLaren. Ferrari was number 4.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say McLaren and Williams.
McLaren was P6, so actually not as successful as they seem, and Williams actually only P8. So overall, that is 12 points compared to Chris's 37. So, as we already said, Mercedes were the top. Brawn would have been P2. That is a little bit of a sneaky one, since they only did one series, but because they won so many races in it, they are P2. Van Wall is P3 for much the same reason, with Ferrari P4, and Red Bull Racing still in P5. So there you go. Fun fact, six of the top 10 teams are British, and 7 are based in the UK at the minute. Woot woot!
I feel like most Formula 1 teams get based in the UK.
Yeah, so 6th would have been McLaren, 7th would have been Lotus, 8th Williams, 9th Matra, and 10th Cooper.
Oh, I thought Tyrrell would have been on there.
Sadly not.
I would have thought Lotus would be higher, but then I remember things started going downhill throughout the mid-90s and stuff.
Yeah, the early 2010s Lotus doesn't count. That actually counts as a separate team. But anyway,
does that count as Caterham?
No, as we heard in the other question, Caterham and Lotus 2010 to 2011 are listed as separate entries.
All right, okay.
So, after the second of the 2 segments, we now have Chris in the lead by just 10 points ahead of Jack, as Chris has 223 with Jack on 213. You're back in front, Chris. However, I'm now throwing a spanner in the works, as we are actually heading away from Formula 1. These final 5 questions will be about other motorsports altogether. Not one specific motorsport, but all motorsports. So,
alright, okay.
Question 1. Top NASCAR Cup Series winners. We start with Jack.
Kyle Busch and
Who, sorry?
Kyle Busch and Richard Petty.
Richard Petty is P1. That's the max points, 25. He actually scored 200 NASCAR Cup Series victories. 200, which is...
His career was really, really long, though. In fact, actually, I think a lot of the NASCAR drivers that started in like the 60s, they all ended like near the 2000s and stuff.
Or died.
Started in 1959 and ended in 1992.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's insane how long some of these careers are.
Yeah. Normally back in those days, you either carried on or died. So there you go.
Yeah, fair enough.
Kyle Busch was 9th, so that's 2 points there. So not as many, although that does give you 27 overall, which is not bad at all. On to Chris. Now, Chris has been watching NASCAR for the longest out of all 3 of us, so yeah.
Since 1999.
You should have a good grip of this.
David Pearson.
Very good.
And Cale Yarborough.
Very good. David Pearson, P2, which is interesting since I'd never heard of him before researching this list. And Cale Yarborough is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Joint 6th with Jimmy Johnson. So that's 8 points to you there. And overall, that is that's 26. So you actually ended up scoring just 1 less than Jack on that. Richard Petty was P1 with David Pearson 2nd. Jeff Gordon 3rd. Bobby Allison is 4th, followed by Darrell Waltrip. Then Cale Yarborough, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Busch, and Rusty Wallace.
I met Bobby Allison.
Ah, very nice. Fun fact, the top NASCAR Cup Series winner who has not yet been inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, excluding drivers still competing, is MacKenzie with 39 wins.
Right, okay.
He'll be in there shortly.
Plus, I wouldn't be surprised if we haven't seen the last of MacKenzie yet, but anyway. So, question 2 with Chris now just 9 points ahead. Very, very close. Indianapolis 500 winners with the most Indy 500s, not necessarily started, between victories. So that means the largest gaps between Indy 500 victories.
Oh, okay. Wait, so the largest gaps between Indy 500 winners by driver.
So these have to be duplicate winners of the Indy 500. These are all people who have won it at least twice. However, this is not to do with how many they won, but how long the gap was between two of their victories.
Ah, okay. I feel like Chris might get this question because he just knows a lot about IndyCar.
Possibly, however, we do go on to some stuff that you may know more about in a bit, so keep steady.
Right. Okay. So,
Is someone knocking on your door, Jack?
I have a desk. I'm just like touching it. Actually,
it's a tough one because you never normally think about
it's a really hard one, actually.
Yeah, you hear like, oh, we have a 3-time Indy champion or a you know, last year's Indy champion going for a second or whatever. You never hear about like when they actually did it. You hear how many they've got, and you hear you know, how likely they are to win again, but you never hear how long it was since the last time they did it, or you know how big the gaps were.
Yeah. So if anyone's from NBC is watching, that's a stat you might want to start putting in your broadcasts. I'm gonna say Mario Andretti and Elio Castroneves.
Okay, well, Elio Castroneves is on the list. He is joint 5th with 2 other drivers who I can't name just yet, so that's 10 points on that. Sadly, Mario Andretti is not on there. Chris, did Mario only win it once? Or?
He only won it once, in 1969.
Really? I would have thought he would have won more, to be honest.
The dreaded Andretti curse happened.
Yep, he only won it once, 1969, although he was on pole 3 times. So that is 10 points to Jack on that one. Right, Chris, show me how it's done.
AJ Foyt.
Yes.
And I've got 2, but I can only pick one. Al Unser.
AJ Foyt was 2nd, so that's 18 points, and Al Unser was 3rd, so that's 15. You all missed P1 Juan Pablo Montoya with 15 years.
Oh, 14, yeah.
Indeed, between the year 2000, was it 99 and 14, or was it 2000 and 2015? It was
2000.
Sure, 2000.
It was 2000.
2015. So that means we have. So that is 33 points to Chris on that one, 10 to Jack. Chris is getting away a bit.
Okay. Right.
And actually, interestingly, I was also thinking Dan Weldon, who had a gap of 6 years.
Let me run through that list for those who are interested. Juan Pablo Montoya, of course, was at the top, followed by AJ Foyt. Joint 3rd, actually, was Al Unser, who Chris guessed, and actually Gordon Johncock. Gordon Johncock. 4th place, or, 5th place, and a triple joint 5th. Bobby Unser, Ari Lyondike, and Elio Castroneves. Dan Weldon was P8, followed by a joint 9th place of Louis Meyer and Rick Mears. Fun fact, Juan Pablo Montoya had a 100% winning record at Indy for 14 years.
I'm sorry, this is just a really funny meme. I'm gonna send this to you guys on Instagram.
Right, so Jack is behind by 22 points. However, this next question should play into his favour. Question 3. Most Aussie V8 Supercar starts. So this is the drivers who have started the most Aussie V8 Supercar races.
Okay, whose careers were long?
I mean, there are some pretty long careers here.
I know there are, yeah. So started the most.
Keep in mind, some of
Okay.
these races had multiple rounds.
Indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
The record just said starts, so I don't know whether that means rounds or whether it means like actual starts, but I presume it means actual starts, judging by the sheer number of these.
Okay. Now, you say this plays into my advantage, however, I only actually watch supercars on occasion, so so this might be interesting. I'm gonna say Peter Brock and
Oh, nice
what was his
rhythm.
name?
I like that.
What was his name? His name.
And his name was John Cena. Du, 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 du.
Are you sure about that?
You can't see him. I know. Greg Murphy.
Good choices. Actually, they're not good at all. Neither of them scored.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah, because it was the Australian Touring Car Championship at that point.
Oh, are you kidding me?
I'm not
Oh
sure.
no.
So, okay, right. I'm not actually sure when the record counted it from. I'm gonna search it up quickly. I believe it did also count Australian Touring Car Championship. I think that all. Yeah, Well, it must be, because before it was Aussie Supercars, it was Aussie, like, International V8 Supercars, and then it was V8 Supercar Championship, blah, blah, blah. So I think...
Then it was the Australian Touring Car Championship, which is when most of
Yeah.
these guys raced.
I think all of that counts, but still, sadly, that is 0 points to Jack. Anyway, Chris, can you do better than that?
Craig Lowndes and Mark Scaife?
Craig Lowndes was P1 with 672
Wow.
starts. Can you believe that?
I reckon it's counting supercars onwards then.
Yeah.
So that would be 2000.
Sorry, Jack, I can only go off what the record says. So that is 672 starts to Craig Lowndes, 25 points to Chris, meaning it's now very difficult for Jack to win. And Mark Scaife as well, he was 9th on the list, so that's 2 extra points just to add insult to injury. So well done, Chris. So for anyone interested in the full list, Craig Lowndes was P1, followed by Garth Tander, Russell Ingle, Jason Bright, Rick Kelly, Todd Kelly, Mark Winterbottom, Jamie Winkup, Mark Scaife, and John Bow. Fun fact about Aussie Supercars, Alan Moffat is the only Aussie Supercars champion not from Oceania or Australasia or whatever you call the continent that Jack lives in.
So it must...
Question 4, with Jack starting again. Most Formula E fan boosts. So this isn't to do with driver achievements, this is mainly just due to popularity. Jack.
Okay. Would it be Stoffel Van Dorn and Jean-Eric Verne?
Van Dorn is 4th, joint 4th with someone else, so that is 12 points. Verne is 6th, so overall that is 20 points. Chris?
Lucas Degrassi and Antonio Felix da Costa.
Degrassi was P2, so that is 18 points, and da Costa is joint 4th with Van Dorn, so overall that is a grand total of 30 points, putting you well and truly ahead of Jack. The full list, Sebastian Buemi has the most with 41, because of course he's a popular driver, he's been racing in Formula E for a long time, since the very beginning. Lucas Degrassi was 2nd, followed by Daniel Abt, Stoffel Van Dorn, Antonio Felix da Costa, Piastri, Jean-Eric Verne, Nick Heidfeld, Nelson Piquet, Salvador Duran, Ayrton Senna, Bruno Senna, Stefan Sarrazin, Oliver Turvey, and Sam Bird. You may have noticed that's more than 10 drivers. That's because Duran, Senna, Sarrazin, Turvey, and Bird were all tied. Fun fact, Stoffel Van Dorn is by far Formula E's most popular driver. He has been given the fan boost at every E-Prix that he's entered, and the only reason he's fourth on this list is because he hasn't entered as many as the three ahead of him.
You know what, I actually am interested because I didn't actually think that many people liked Sebastian Buemi, but
Obviously they do.
But all right.
Yeah, 41 times he's been given the fan boost, so there you go.
Right. And if you consider how many races there've been in Formula E, that's like a sizable percentage, actually.
So, heading on to the final question now. Jack is just 29 points behind, meaning that it's difficult for him to win this, but it is still doable, as the maximum points you can score in a round is 43. And the question, it's about rallying, which I think may
I don't know anything about this.
I think this may favour Chris slightly, although I thought Jack would have a slight advantage in the Formula 1 stuff, but never mind. Okay, right.
I don't know anything about this.
Oh dear.
Most WRC event wins by manufacturers.
Manufacturers?
Good luck,
Okay.
Jack.
How far does this go back, can I ask? So does this go back to like the Group C and stuff?
This goes back to however long ago the record counts WRC as being existing for.
And also, Group C racing in, also Group C.
So Group B.
Rallying.
Group C rallying would actually be certain death, as if Group B wasn't already dangerous enough.
Okay, I just did some research. The records go back to 1973.
Okay, right, I can do this. So most WRC event wins. That is the question, right?
Indeed, per manufacturer. So we're not looking at drivers or co-drivers, but we are looking at manufacturers.
Okay, good, because I don't actually know that many rally drivers, other than like Stig Blomqvist and Sebastian Ogier. But okay, so
Wait,
I'm gonna say.
Stig Blomqvist? I know he did rally cross. Did he actually do rallying? Surely he did.
Yeah. Ford.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that shows how much I know about rallying. But okay, so I'm gonna say Audi and Citroen? I don't know. I don't know anything about rallying.
Right. So, Citroen is P1 with 102 event wins to this day. So, for Jack to have a chance to beat Chris, you need to score at least 5 points here with your second guess, meaning it would need to be 7th or better. Jack, Audi placed P9.
Ooh.
So I'm afraid Chris is the winner, despite not having picked his last choices yet. I will give you choices, Chris, just to see how much you win by. But that means that Jack's final score at the end of this is 277. Unlucky, Jack, but a very valiant effort. You kept it alive until the final round. Chris, what would you have said? It doesn't matter much, but you can still extend your lead.
I'm gonna go with Lancia and Subaru.
Good choices. Lancia was 3rd, so that's 15 points. Subaru was P6, so that is 8. And that gives you, so that's 23 points for that round, which gives you 322 points overall. Chris, your winning margin was 45 points. That is pretty good. overall. That's actually more than you can score in a round. For those interested, Citroen were P1, followed by Ford M Sport P2. Then it's Lancia, Toyota, Peugeot, Subaru, Volkswagen, Mitsubishi, Audi, and Fiat. Fun fact, despite Lancia only being third on this list, they are actually the only manufacturer to win 10 WRC championships.
Dear. Well,
so anyway,
congratulations,
that's your lot. Chris is the winner by 45 points over Jack. It was a valiant effort, though. It went right down to the last round, and you both had some terrific choices. So great job to both of you. Thank you very much for playing, and we'll be seeing
This
you.
was fantastic.
Indeed, it was. Thanks as well to Jack for adding this to the official playlist. If you want to watch the previous rounds of Gameshow Grand Prix, which we've hosted, those are both on Jack's channel, and I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of this video. But anyway, commiserations to you, Jack. Do you have any thoughts to say before the end of the video?
I am immensely disappointed, but congratulations to Chris. And this is actually, I think this is the first time that Chris has actually won one of these. So that means we've all, Wait, Caitlin, have you won one of these? I'm pretty sure you have.
Did I win the Price is Right? Because we've done 2 so far.
I think you did. I don't remember actually.
I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, Jack won the first one.
I
may have won the second. So yeah, we've all won one now. Nice.
Okay. All right. Next one's the well, actually, no, it's not, because one of us has to host. Unless we get somebody else to host it, that might be interesting.
It will either be, so it won't be me next time. So it'll either be Jack, Chris, or another host if we can get that to work. So that's undecided still. But anyway, congrats to Chris. Chris, do you have any thoughts before the video ends?
Well, I'd just like to congratulate
yourself.
I'd just like to congratulate Jack on an excellent game there. Kept it close, and I can't believe I won, honestly. But yeah, this was a really fun game, though. It was a great game, and thanks to Caitlin and thanks to Jack for playing with me, and yeah.
Thank you both. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you in the next round. This has been Caitlin Penny, and Jack MacKenzie, and Chris Whitfield, of course. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
See you guys later.
Ta-ra!
Ta-ta.